Hello, darling, and welcome to Style and Consciousness with Ejani. I am Ejani, and I'm very excited to chat with you today. So today, I'm going to answer a question that I received recently, which was, could you explain how the elements, so iconic essence and the elements came to be? Like how did I quote unquote develop it? And secondly, the other question was, walk us through your style. What's your style? What's your thing here? We don't get it. And so I was thinking about the two separate questions, and it became very obvious that they go together, right? The answer goes together. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about iconic essence, how it came to be, the elements, and then it's going to be a good old mashup with my elements and my style. Okay, so where to begin? So from the time I was a wee little lass, so since literally the beginning of time, the furthest back I can remember, I've always been interested in aesthetics. So always noticing how people dress, noticing how they decorate their homes, noticing their makeup, noticing accessories. I've always been into that. And there's a story that my grandparents love telling me about how when I was, I think 3 or 4 years old, I went into a store and I really wanted this pair of high heels that was totally blinged out, like gemstone, like rhinestone cowboyed out, and I really wanted them. And the woman said, well, we don't have your size because you're a little kid, so sorry. And then I promised her I would be back when I was 18 to buy the shoes, and could she please hold them for me? And that pretty much is a good example of how obsessed I was with these things, right? That's like, I remember as soon as I would get money, the things I would buy, I would always buy music or clothes or something aesthetic, right? And yes, I love the aesthetic part, but there was always knew there was something deeper. There was something I would later come to know as energetic about it, right? So I could, again, from a young age, I would look at people and see, oh, this aunt, for example, is dressing like this because everyone else is dressing like this, not because this is her. I feel like she's a little more rebellious or a little da-da-da. And so I would go and I would just be like, hey, because I was really young, so people didn't get offended or anything. Hey, can I do your makeup? Can I change your clothes? Can I pick your clothes today or whatever? And I did it for my mom, for relatives, for friends, neighbors, everyone. And so I would, just go and make them over or whatever, judge their clothes or how their accessories were or their hair, whatever. And then often people would be like, holy bananas, like this looks like me. I feel like I'm finally seeing me, And so I was just like, oh, it's a cute little hobby. It's cute, whatever. And I tried to go on like a more traditional track or whatever. And then eventually I decided I want to do something. I want to have my own business and do something creative and fun. And so I'm going to have a coaching business. So I started a coaching business, and boy, I resisted the style stuff. I resisted it because to me it felt really superficial and silly. Even though I knew that it wasn't, I knew it was like a gift, but I thought no one's going to take this seriously. It just comes from me. I'm not a trained stylist, nothing, right? And so I resisted, and eventually something really magical happened. So I was actually, because I had a lot of anxiety, which is why most of my life I felt invisible. And so at one point, because of this, I felt invisible. And so I had this anxiety of just being seen, not being seen. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to be seen. Oh, there was this whole internal battle for years and years. And so actually I had a lovely therapist slash medicine man, Brujo, who, lovely person. And he introduced me to Reiki and said he thought that it would help me with my anxiety. And so he attuned me into Reiki, and I started practicing on myself and really felt a difference. And then it's like, that was the first time I really started getting words and kind of a framework for stuff I had always felt and known and experienced, right? The energetic kind of perspective, what was beyond the veil, all the subtle invisible realms, right? That's when I really started feeling it. I started practicing Reiki on others, and people were having amazing experiences and just like, whoa. And I started understanding the chakras more, and I started noticing each chakra really is in charge of a different aspect, right? And then at the same time, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna lean into style. I'm gonna lean into it. And And I really was interested in how like there were some people who really matched the qualities of the chakras just inherently, generally, right? So like solar plexus, fire, it's about will, it's edge, it's like about determination, getting out there, it's about, right? Power, all these things. And I was like, what, like that's a style of person, like that's a way people dress. So it kind of started connecting the dots, you know, the elements with different almost, I want to say, I just saw how different people are really expressed in these different ways, right? Air, water, fire, earth. Those were the first ones. And I was like, and most people, I started noticing the thing that I've always noticed is that they're probably not just that one thing. There's more missing, but they haven't brought it forward. They've been either refusing or denying or resisting it, or they've been told that it's bad, and so they try to hide it. And so I started really noticing that. And secondly, I started noticing that when there were so many rules. There are so many rules, aren't there, in this 3D that we call Earth and whatever, the Matrix, whatever, right? So many rules. And I started noticing like how limited people were by those rules. Like, oh, I watched fashion shows, right? Where it's like, you know, even growing up, oh, what was it? What Not to Wear. Do you remember that show? Comment below if you remember that show. And remember, I think it was Stacey London, right? Saying, oh no white after Labor Day, no short skirts after the age of 35. That's an abomination. Just all these rules. If you're top heavy, you have to wear something, you know, very, you know, to take the attention off of your bust. You have to hide, basically, you have to camouflage those parts of you that other people have deemed, you know, unsavory or unlikable or bad somehow. And you have to dress in a way that's going to flatter you, basically for the pleasure of other people. And that just always rubbed me the wrong way. Yeah, I did that. It really ruffled my freaking feathers, okay? And so I started, those things were happening simultaneously. Like I was doing sessions with people and I was like, you know, in actually one of my first closet sessions with a client, it was actually my good friend in Mexico, and I was like, you know what? You follow so many rules. And she had amazing style, and she was following so many rules that I could tell there was more that wanted to come out. So then and there I told her, like, what if you just literally stop doing what you're doing because your brain's telling you to follow these rules, stop doing it, and just wear what calls to you. Like, just let's have it feel random. And so she started doing random stuff and just putting it on. And then I started helping her, you know, just have, like, yes, you have a long sleeve shirt, now you style it, you give it intention. So you pull up the sleeves, for example, or a button up. A button up can be a button up can be on backwards, a button up can be something where you use the sleeves to actually, you know, cross over. A button up can be crossed over like that and tucked into a belt, right? There's so many things you can do with a button up. And so we were playing with this, and I was like, yes, this is because also parentheses, since I always did love clothes, I had to get very creative because most of my life we were pretty low income, and I was very inspired by fashion. So I had to a lot of times just find either a cheap version to zhuzh or to elevate, or something at the thrift store, or I had to cut something up or make it or alter it, whatever, right? And so I'm really grateful because that gave me the sort of tools to get creative and work with what we have. So we were doing that in this closet session with my friend, shout out Leti. And she was like, oh my, her mind was blown. She was like, I can't believe we're creating this. I feel like this with stuff I already have in my closet. And I was like, yes, right? And so that was really, that kind of set it off where this is about stopping the rules, like not following any of the fashion rules, not following any style rules, not following any age rules, not following the rules you learned in your family that, you know, where you have to be like this to be acceptable or not acceptable. Because when we do that, obviously we're erasing or silencing part of ourselves. And it just was really obvious always. And this was one of the first times where I had, because it was on Zoom also, or Skype back in the day, but I was guiding her and she was choosing the clothes. I wasn't like before when I was making people over, I was kind of telling them what to put on, but she just was going and doing it herself. And that was so amazing. And that just clicked for me. I was like, yes, this is about the person like playing and being random and creating something magical on their own with my guidance, right? And breaking the rules that they've been carrying and breaking like the taking away the power from brain, and from the Matrix, right? And just creating something that no one else is freaking wearing on the planet. And that just was so exciting. So then we come back to the elements, right? I always understood about myself when I remember distinctly, because I partially grew up in Mexico, my family's there. So we would go in the summers, and my cousins and I would have these deep discussions about what our aesthetic was, right? My sister and my cousin, they were more they were edgy. So now I would say they were fire. I didn't realize that because I didn't have my lingo. So, and me, I was like, I'm not as edgy, but there's something funky. And also there's something a little cutesy and a little formal. And so I call in Mexico, someone who's kind of preppy is called a fresa, someone who's really kind of more conservative or like, trendy, not kind of the opposite of like edgy and like counterculture, right? And so I was like, I'm not totally fresa at all, but I'm not totally funky at all. So I'm funky fresa. And that was like the first time I identified this juxtaposition that really ignited something in me, and that really helped me. And right, so fast forward, now I understand why I was funky fresa. So with that, the elements started coming up, and that's where I realized we're not each one element with our like expression or the expression of our essence, right? That would be so blah. And in fact, and this is not to knock anyone or to make fun, right? But how many, like when I say yoga goddess coach, how do you see that person dressed? There is a stereotype for that, right? And so many people, workout goddesses, yoga goddesses, you go online, they all follow that aesthetic, when that's not actually their essence, right? Those aren't actually their elements. Not everyone is water. That's what that aesthetic is, right? So lots of white and beautiful, like ocean in the background and palm trees, and they're just being really soft and gentle with like a long crystal necklace. It's beautiful. It's not everyone though, right? And so I was like, there has to be this other thing that brings your uniqueness, that kind of spices things up, right? Because you can have a beautiful stew, and if it doesn't have spices, this like beautiful combination of spices, it's really fucking boring, right? And I said an F-bomb. And so I realized that, and I was like, okay, so this means what? Everyone has two elements, because they work together. They're seeming opposites. That's something that my clients say often, like, oh, how do I get fire and water to work together? Because they're opposites. No, they're not, because you're not literally fire and water, right? These two come together, and you take qualities and sort of energies from them, and that, when you give yourself full permission to be those qualities and those characteristics and those expressions, those sort of energetic imprints, then that unlocks to something that's uniquely yours, okay? Uniquely yours. And so, because even saying funky fresa, like back in the day to someone, that could have looked totally different. One of my friends in Mexico could have been funky fresa too, if I think of her now, but she did it totally differently, right? So that's the beauty of this. And so, with the elements, I started understanding, okay, so the elements, I started noticing also, like there are these four: air, water, fire, and earth. But what about and that's really represented a lot online, like everywhere, right? Like air, you have the cutesy person, water, kind of like the goddess, fire is like the edgy rebel, and earth is sort of the more classic, sleek, whatever person. And I was like, there is something definitely missing, because none of these appeal to me truly 100%, right? And that's where I realized, well, there's the crown chakra, and the crown chakra is otherworldly, it's inexplicable, it's mysterious, right? And so that really connected dots for me, and I was like, wow, there are these 5 elements, and we each like lean into 2 of them, and it has nothing to do with astrology, it has nothing to do with any of that, because that's all information for our earthly life. This goes beyond. This is about our quintessential expression. This is about the expression of who we actually are when we're not human, right? And we get to bring that into human form to activate us and to help us remember who we are and how fucking powerful we are, right? Isn't this exciting? Oh my gosh. So these dots, like this happened over a series of like, over the timeline of like, oh my goodness, I'd say a year from when I got attuned to like my final level of Reiki. So anyway, that's what I started playing with. The elements, how do they express? How do they express together? Which element are you ignoring? And so I remember one day when a client of mine, I'm hopping all over the place, but I'm gonna just trust that you're getting whatever information and magic you need to feel activated about your elements and your style and your expression. Okay, So one of my clients, well, the first time I did a photo shoot in Paris was with a beautiful client who's now become my BFF. Shout out, P. And so we did her photo shoot, and before we were, like on the whatever, we were chatting, we were having lunch, whatever, and she asked me, so what are your elements? What's your style? What's your iconic essence? And I was like, I actually have never taken the time to discover my own. And so that actually opened up a whole beautiful can of worms for me, because I discovered that I am air and space. So air is cutesy, it's whimsical, it's happy, and I've always been attracted to things like neon signs and either miniature or large objects. You can see here, right? Like a watch. I don't know, I've always been attracted to those objects. I've always been attracted to like hearts and glitter. And at the same time, not like too cutesy. There was always something weird about me. I like it to be a little bit odd. I like things to be a little bit timeless, but in almost like the past via the future, or the future via the past. Like I like things that are a little bit, or not even like things, I'm drawn to them. What activates me is things that are a little bit odd, a little bit unnerving, a little bit ugly pretty, right? And I've always been attracted to that, and I always felt like I was all over the place, but finally it made sense. Like after years of trying to look normal as an earth person, so earth is very stable, very steady, very reliable, very tried and true. And I tried so many years to be that person, because I thought that was what was acceptable. That's what was beautiful in my family. That's what they considered to be respectable and stuff, right? And so I was like trying so hard, and it just never was me. The weird or whatever part of you you're trying to hide, it's always going to come squirting out somewhere. That shit's going to squirt out. So it was squirting out, and I also didn't want to be too air, because I've always been sort of fluffy and happy, and as someone told me, puppy energy or hummingbird energy, right? Hyper and excited. I'm excited about life. I get excited. And so but also mysterious and aloof, right? So I was like, what am I? So yes, air and space really sealed the deal for me. And it's when I really started, instead of trying to fit in, I really started understanding my style in a deeper, bigger way, in a more elevated way, through space and air, right? I started being able to curate my space. I started being able to show up. Like I discovered gigantic glasses probably like 7 years ago, when I went to Croatia, and I've always been attracted to ridiculous big glasses, but I wouldn't let myself wear them all the time, because I thought, oh, that's silly, right? And I saw these, and I was just like, not these, but my first pair, and I was like, I'm gonna do it. It's gonna be very uncomfortable, and I'm gonna do it, because that's my quirky, weird air, and that's okay, right? So my air loves things like this. It loves this super bright, it doesn't look as bright right here, but this is ridiculously bright orange. So it likes that. And at the same time, my space likes weird things like this that look like it could be alien poop, and right, like things that are slightly unnerving, or this like silvery top that just feels a little bit odd, right? So it really allowed me to understand myself. And then what happened is, with the elements, I started understanding not only my style, but then it helped me understand my clients better, and start seeing tendencies and things in them about how they're meant to market, what they're holding back when they when they speak, when they post, in their relationships. Like the beautiful thing is, I saw how this affects every area of life. I just start with your clothes and your brand, right? So yeah, I realized also I was always obsessed, like I said, and I feel like this is kind of the space, but also, so one thing about air is really, a lot of air people are attracted to vintage stuff, kind of the quirky, pin-up-y, or even like medieval-y or 1920s, like because there's a quirkiness to it, right? And kind of a nostalgia and sweetness to some of the bygone styles. And so I've always been attracted to that, and now I understand, like my grandparents' house, and my grandfather, I would often wear my grandfather's outfits, and like he was a tailor, so he had all these amazing clothes and these shoes, and I would literally steal his shoes. And I realized that was sort of my my space also. So it was space and air. Air is attracted to, but it wasn't too, I didn't want it to be too sweet. It was really when it was a little bit weird and almost the quote unquote masculine, right? That masculine energy. I'm not talking about woman, man, but like masculine. And that's just always been very attractive to me. And that's very space also, right? And so Also the decorations, I can see, I was obsessed with my grandparents' house. It was all very kind of Baroque style. I think probably via the 60s. And I just could drink it up. I loved it so much. Their little knickknacks and trinkets and tchotchkes, chacharitas, as we say in Spanish and in Mexico. And so I was just always into that. And it was just the perfect mix for me of space and air. So my style is that. I call it, so before I was funky fresa when I was young, and now I understand that it was like an edgy kind of sweetness or whatever, kind of preppy, edgy. And now I realize it's Technicolor Priestess. So Technicolor is bright and happy and cheery and in your face and like very, very enthusiastic and dynamic and very saturated, and at the same time, you know, and then Priestess feels it's very mystical and aloof and removed and odd and cosmic, cosmic Priestess. So there you go. So that's been the evolution, and there have been so many iterations of my clothing. Maybe I need to do a tour video. Give me a comment below and tell me if you want me to do a tour of my closet and kind of walk you through the air and the space, like sort of characteristics, or how they fit into air and space, and how I put things together. I'm gonna definitely do a video about that. So, because they come together so naturally. You don't have to try. It's really letting go and just being like, I'm air and space. And I get to just dress until I get that click and that F yeah. And then I know, boom, I'm activated. Oh, and then I just feel like I can take on the world. And I do feel like that with this shirt and these earrings. And probably the cost of these too, just for fun, because also, as I mentioned, I grew up in poverty. And so I don't really care if things are name brand or how expensive they are. I just care if it's a boop, yeah, an F yeah. And I mean, these two together were definitely under 10 euros. So, you know, it's all good. It's all energy. We don't care about the 3D. It's all about the energy. So I just talked a lot. I don't even know if I answered the question, but I'm going to trust it. All right, darlings, give me comments below. And I'm so excited. You can take the quiz to see what your elements are. You can also join me in Iconified. Iconified is a membership where basically like all these dorky things that I love talking about, energetics, the elements, style, you know, following your F yeah, your brand, like really being iconic and showing up as only you can, because no one else in the world is you. And now I understand no one else in the world is like me. Right? There just isn't anyone else like you sitting in a place where you're sitting, right? And dress how you are and speaking how you speak and talking about what you talk about. It's impossible. So you are one of one, darling. And if you want to remember that and you want to access that and you want to hone the fuck out of it, then join me in Iconified. I'm going to put the link in the comment and the description. You can join for just $27 a month and you have access to a shit ton of stuff. You have access to a monthly call with me. You get a monthly theme that really goes deeper into your elements. So you can start playing. You have a daily energy expander, essence expander, so you can stay connected, right? You have a community with fellow icons. There's just so much yumminess there. So I'll put the link below, and thank you for hanging out with me. I talked a lot, and let me know if you have any follow-up questions. And all right, darling, until next time.